See how little room there is whenever the piston's at bottom dead center? That's what you got to flow. So opening that up is definitely going to provide increases in flow, okay? Because the crankcase itself see how there's no cutouts, you know? There's literally, it's almost exactly flat. Now there's a little bit of space there, right? So you can gain some volume because this is lower than the gasket shelf, okay? So there's maybe a millimeter of difference between this level and this. So you're gonna add 1 millimeter of flow volume right there. But the piston at bottom dead center, that's bottom dead center right there. So also if we open up the piston as well, that's going to increase our flow, right? Now, here's the numbers. All right, pay attention to that squish. We'll come back to that. But the intake opens at 68.8, so we can just say 69 degrees. Exhaust opens at 101.3. I think that's perfect. Transfers open at 131. So we got a full 30 degrees of blowdown. All right. Again, I was speaking to this in an earlier video. Whenever that blowdown is high like that, what that does is gives tons of time for everything to get out of the exhaust. Couple that with your extremely high crankcase pressure, right? Because our intake is opening at 69 degrees and our transfers don't open until 131. So that is 62 degrees of crankcase pressure. And that's a teeny tiny crankcase. So it does not need that. Man, these things are different. But anyways, let's think about this for a second here. The intake is exceptionally low, right? We could open that up a lot. Say 10 full degrees. We go from 69 degrees intake opening to 79 degrees intake opening. So that then changes our crankcase pressure from 62 to 52 degrees of crankcase pressure. Still a lot. It's still plenty. And then we can raise the transfers. I don't want to raise them 10 full degrees, but 6 degrees, yeah. So we'll do the transfers at 125 degrees coming open, which means if we can hit those numbers, then we're going from 79 degrees intake opening and therefore intake closing to 125 degrees. So that gives us 46 degrees of crankcase pressure. I think that'll be good. I think that'll be very good. Not touch the exhaust except for widen it up, you know. Leave the gasket in place. Because our squish, nah, I'll go ahead and drop it down. Because that squish, Dolmar does this thing where, don't know if you can see it, but there's a ring on the outside. You see that little ring? That ring is about 0.010 of an inch thick. If you can remove that ring completely, then you're sitting right up against the actual squish band. It's almost like a stepped squish band. But if I can remove that ring, then the entire squish will be at 36 thousandths. And then lower it about 15 thousandths of an inch. And then we have a 20 thousandth squish. So all I got to do is remove that ring and then machine the base. Machine the base, and we'll have a nice squish. Yeah, let's do it. I was thinking of not doing it. I was really heavily considering not doing it. After having done 3 Makitas in the past, I'm starting to gather my thoughts on what they like and what they don't like. And I'm wondering if I can't get just as good of results by not machining it. Just do all the little things to fix the problems that are built into the cylinder, such as that, right? The intake. It's only got 69 degrees of intake. It's nowhere near enough. Look at that little tiny intake hole. All right. I mean, it's not tiny, but yeah, it's small. It's not big. And then it really flattens out down there at the bottom. It flattens. All right. So that tells me they're running a nozzle effect. They're pinching it. See how little it gets? Yeah, it gets wider. It does. It gets wider, but they're pinching that flow down. I'm doing it without machine work. No machine work. Done. No machine work. All work on the piston and port work on the cylinder. And no machine work. Let's see what we get. Okay, I couldn't help myself. So I measured the gasket, and it was 16 thousandths of an inch. So I was like, shit. Because originally, like the squish, I got 2 readings. There was one that ring, and that was at 27 thousandths. And so if I removed this, you know, my piston, whenever it was hot, would hit that ring. But like the rest of the combustion chamber was 36 thousandths. So if I cut that ring out and remove this, then I would have a perfect 20,000 squish. So that's what I did. I cut that ring out, and you can see the combustion chamber is untouched. I just cut around the edge that ring, and so now my squish is cut. And without a base gasket, this is lowered down, and we have 20,000 squish. And we're rolling with it like that. And I'm going to try and do the intake with the piston alone. Because I'm going to try and keep that intake really small. Really small. So it flows really fast. And, yeah. Okay, so I think we're done. Here's the cylinder. I had some flub ups What I ended up doing was I cut that outside ring of death. I cut it out. Base gasket delete. I'm at 20 thousandths. Squish. I cut these out right here. I cut them out on the piston as well. All right. And the intake timing numbers I got right there. I didn't touch the actual intake. Didn't do anything to it at all. Nothing. I got all my timing numbers with that little notch on the piston. All right. Now, why did I want to do it this way? Because I want to keep velocity up. All right. This thing is a pretty small intake, and then it actually squeezes down even a little bit. So that tells me that they're wanting to go for velocity. Everything that they've done with this saw, they're wanting to go with velocity, because that super crazy high crankcase pressure, that's not really, that's a different kind of velocity. It's shooting into the combustion chamber really fast because of that, all that pressure that it builds up. But that's to overcome the clogged exhaust, I believe. But it's not going to have the clogged exhaust now. So we're going to try to make this velocity, right, of this small, my finger won't even go through there. I'm stuck. We're going to try and make this velocity work for higher RPMs. All right. So that's the intake timing numbers came out to 78. Perfect. The transfers, I did 125 on the transfer roof. So I didn't have to move them very much. They're still nice and small. Nice transfers. All right. But that's still, I mean, I raised them 6 degrees. So we were at 131. And then with the base gasket drop, that put us probably at like 133 or something. So actually, I probably more likely raised them about 7 or 8 degrees, something like that. But anyways, yeah, 8 or 9 degrees. 125 on the transfers. Now the exhaust. Big problem with the exhaust. I'm sure you can't see a damn thing down there. But what happened was, I decided whenever I did the base gasket delete, that put my exhaust at over 103. And so I was, that's not good. This thing's got a 35 millimeter stroke. Let's go ahead and do 100. Plus, everybody talks about how Dolomars like a really high exhaust roof. So I was like, let's do 100. And so I'm just doing the lightest things. And I see something. I'm like, what? Flake. I had, yeah. I'm looking directly at it. Maybe I can see her. There it is. You see on the left, right there. See that? That was a big flake. Bloop, came out. And so, of course, I blended it in and stuff like that. But because of that, I had to raise the exhaust roof higher than I would have ever dared on a saw like this. But, you know, people say they like a really high exhaust roof. So we will see how this works. It's got a 96 degree exhaust roof, and that scares me. I don't like that at all. However, I mean, people build stuff all the time with a really, really high exhaust roof. Shit, you know, I mean, stuff works. You know, I've known of 50cc saws, so 32 millimeter stroke, maybe even less than that, 31 millimeter stroke, where the exhaust was set at 96, and they're absolute screamers. So we will see. This is an exercise in curiosity. So, but even though, I mean, I didn't mean to do it, it flaked. I can't believe it flaked, actually. I was like, because I was just praising this cylinder for how nice it is. And so we'll see. We'll put it together. The piston work. I've been doing piston work now, and it holds up pretty darn good. And I think that this will as well. So all we can do is put it together and give it a shot. Still got to do the muffler mod, but yeah, we're about to get this thing together and see how it performs. Holy shit, man, that's faster than that. Okay, this is the third time that I've actually recorded this add-on here that you're about to hear. All right, so a lot of this comes from Jeff Seacombe, which is his channel on YouTube is Leave Nothing Stock. And this comes from a conversation that he and I had about raising the exhaust roof. And he really wants me to take and build one of my 620s or 590s with a very high exhaust roof. He swears up and down that it'll run better. And after having done this with this Dolmar with a 96-degree exhaust roof, I can get what he's talking about. And so I wanted to give credit there for him. Check out Jeff Seacombe at Leave Nothing Stock. So anyways, on with it. Why is the 96-degree exhaust roof working? Well, I am very privileged in having the knowledge of building two of the Makita 5600s, which are different saws than the 6100. However, I have that experience there, and they are very similar. I also have the experience of the 620s and 590s, and spark knock is an issue whenever I build those saws because I'm building them with about 102 exhaust roof. The 5600 has a 102 exhaust roof as well. And those two saws, the 620 590 and the Makita 5600, I've been running them with a 102 exhaust roof, and I got spark knock. Okay. Why is that? Well, it's because they're creating so much compression that with the current timing that they come with from factory, you get spark knock. And so to get rid of the spark knock, you would have to advance the timing further. No. Would you advance it? Yeah, it's happening too soon. You would have to retard the timing. Sorry, my bad. This is why this is the third time that I'm doing this. You would have to retard the timing so that it can run with that high of compression without getting spark knock. All right. The other way of handling that is the way that I inadvertently handled it with this Makita 6100, and that is I ran a higher exhaust roof. Does a higher exhaust roof make it rev faster? I don't think it does. I know that I'll probably get a lot of people that go, no, that's exactly blah, 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 blah. But I have learned a lot over the past few years, and what I have learned is there are different ways to build your power. No set formula is going to work for every saw that you do or just every build that you do, right? And so by having the high exhaust roof, we are losing some compression. And by losing some compression, it puts it right in line with the stock timing that saw has. And it seemed to work out perfect with this Makita 6100 to run a 96-degree exhaust roof because that's where the timing was. If I had went with the 100 or 102 exhaust roof that I was looking to do before the cylinder flaked on me, then I would have gotten spark knock just like
my Makita 5600 at a 102 exhaust roof currently has spark knock. So does the 102 roof of the Makita 5600 have more torque than this Makita 6100 at 96 degree exhaust roof? Absolutely not. Now, I know that they're two different saws and everything like that, but anyways, no, it doesn't have more torque. So that higher exhaust roof is not giving me more torque. What it's giving me is an abundance of compression for where the timing is set at from the factory. Nobody wants to retard the timing because that's going to make you go slower, turn slower RPMs, right? So we want to keep the timing where it's at. I mean, you can, like I said, it's two different ways to skin a cat, but nobody really wants to go backwards in timing, right? Even though it might make for a torqueer saw in these situations. The 96 exhaust roof has me a little bit dumbfounded because I can't exactly understand why it's working. And I'm trying to figure it out. I'm a guy that really likes to know the answers, right? And I think the answer is simply about the timing of this saw. It's making it work where it wants to work with stock timing. That's why the 96 degree exhaust roof is working. Now, what would be interesting would to be take this exact same saw and build it exactly the same way as I did and do a 102 exhaust roof and then retard the timing and see where it's at. Would you gain power? I don't think that you would. I think that we're there. I think that it's good the way that it is, and just run a high exhaust roof on these saws. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So, why retard that timing so that you can run a 102 exhaust roof? Maybe it would get more torque. I don't know. But I do know from doing the 5600 that if you run a low exhaust roof of 102, you get spark knock at the higher RPMs, which means that the spark is happening too soon, right? And your explosion is hitting the top of that piston before it comes around and gets on the downstroke, right? There's a really finite amount of time that you have to make that line up perfectly. And I think that the reason why people are enjoying the high exhaust roofs on these Dolmars and Makitas is not because they just like it, right? I think it's because the timing is so far advanced, very similar to the Echo 620. The timing is so far advanced that whenever you add an abundance of compression, you're getting spark knock. All right, so that's my theory. The only way to test it would be to actually put it to work and retard the timing on one of these saws with a lower exhaust roof, and see if what you came up with was a saw that steel revved really well and had better torque. But am I going to go that far? Probably not. Maybe on something else along the lines. Maybe whenever I do another 620, I will work at retarding the timing and see what that gives us. But I've yet to truly figure out how to build an excessively torquey saw. Everything with everybody, seems to be geared towards maximum power. And it would be interesting to do this, with Dino Joe. Because Dino Joe could build a saw with a very high exhaust roof. I'm sorry, other way around. A very low exhaust roof, high number. Like, let's say Echo 620. Port it all up and keep that exhaust roof at 104, right? And then you got tons of spark knock, because you're putting a lot more fuel in there because you've ported it, right? You're putting a lot more fuel in there, and you got a lot more compression. That fuel is under a lot more compression, and so you get spark knock, and then you take that same saw and you just retard the timing. Roll that back a little bit. See if you can build a saw specifically built for torque. Because us builders, I hesitate even calling myself a builder, but I guess at this point I kind of am. But us builders, we tend to just want the maximum speed and power, right? What if we built something specifically for torque? Yeah. I think that'd be the way to go. Give it so much compression that it spark knocks and then back off on the timing. Have your transfers opening. I don't know, leave the transfers opening high. Leave them opening high so that you get a lot of fuel in there. A lot of fuel. Low exhaust roof, so you got tons of compression, and then retard the shit out of the timing. That might be the way to go to build a saw that's just torquey as can be. It can be in the cut, in it, and then you trigger it and it just starts pulling chain, That would be an interesting build. Maybe I should do it. Maybe I will. Anyways, that's enough of this ramble session. And let me know what you guys think, why the Dolmars tend to favor a 96 degree or around that, a very high exhaust roof. I'm going with it's because of the timing, where they're set at. People have been building them and they go, I got spark knock. And so they raise the roof. They raise the roof until they get rid of their spark knock. And then they tell the world, Dolmar's like a high exhaust roof. Whenever maybe what Dolmar's like is a retarded timing. I don't know. Theorizing here. Please put it in the comments what you think. I dig this stuff a lot. Later.